Hello everyone. Today we'll be installing Mr. McGregor's fence. To install the fence, you'll need a couple of tools, so gather up the ones listed on your printed installation instructions. Double check your kit components for damaged or missing items. To prepare for installation, mow the area where you plan to put up the fence. This diagram depicts a three-sided fence, with the fourth side as a pre-existing barrier. Our first step is to plug in the Energizer and make sure its light is blinking. AC Energizers should be housed indoors, but if you really need to have it outside, make sure it's mounted and adequately protected from the rain.
To make sure you don't shock yourself, turn off the Energizer before continuing to install the fence.
Next, we're going to lay down a plastic weed barrier along the length of the fence. This prevents weeds from growing up and touching the electric wires. An electric fence with weeds touching it is an electric fence that isn't working properly. The black plastic weed barrier is pretty ugly, so we'll be covering it over at the end of the video with bark mulch or hay. Now that our weed barrier is down, it's time to lay out the posts. Lay out the 27-inch posts, evenly spaced, along the length of the weed barrier. Take out the green mesh and unroll a section. If you opted for the additional squirrel barrier, then this is the point where you will attach it. Unroll it and use the twist ties to hold it to the green mesh fencing. Don't worry about the strength of the twist ties, they're just holding it in place for the moment. Snap two insulators onto each of the 27-inch posts. Put the first one on the very top of the post and the second one 18 inches down. Hammer in the posts using a block of wood, making sure not to damage the top insulator. Drive it in until the lower insulator is nearly touching the weed barrier. Slip the green mesh fence into the insulators and slide them away from one another until they hold the fencing securely in place. Now that you're getting the gist of inserting your posts, the video is going to demonstrate all the things you may have to do while putting up your green mesh fence. This includes going around corners, splicing together fence pieces, cutting fence pieces, and finishing off the fence. If you want to make a gate for a wheelbarrow, then leave a gap in your fencing which is wide enough to accommodate one. Then cut a piece of fencing 6 inches wider than the width of your gap. Attach this piece of fencing to both gate posts in the same way you attach the rest of the fencing.
When you want to use your gate, simply remove this piece of fencing and bring your wheelbarrow through.
Next, we're going to put the insulators onto the posts. Watch carefully now, as this can be a bit confusing. Take care to avoid getting fiberglass splinters in your hands. Lay out the short posts at equal intervals around the outside of the fence, just as you did with the first set of posts earlier. For line posts, meaning non-corner posts, drive them in at a distance of 3 inches away from the base of the green fence. These posts should be driven in until they stand at a height of 9 inches. Corner posts should be driven in 5 inches away from the corner and stand parallel to both sets of line posts. Our next step is putting up the electric wires. The video is going to demonstrate all the different things you might need to do while installing the electric wire, such as starting a run of wire, connecting to a line post, going around a corner, looping back, and terminating.
Alright, now the fence is fully set up and it's time to cover up the weed barrier. This is done to protect the barrier from damaging sunlight and to be aesthetically pleasing. Make sure that when you're done laying down the covering, that there is nothing touching the electric wires.
After you've finished that, we're going to set up the grounding system. Drive the ground rod into the ground in an area which is moist and close to your fence and energizer. This will limit the distance the charge needs to travel underground. Loop a piece of wire around the rod between the two nuts and tighten them until they're pinching the wire. Run the grounding wire to your energizer and attach it to the grounding terminal. It's okay for your grounding wire to be touching objects, but don't string it somewhere it could break because the fence will not function properly.
Now let's connect the active wire to the energizer. Take some of your insulated wire and strip about 1 inch of insulation off the end. Attach it to your active fence wire using some electrician's tape to hold it in place.
String the wire in such a way that it doesn't get tread on or damaged by windows and doors. Cut it to the desired length, shave the end, and attach it to the active terminal on your charger. If you had to put your AC Energizer outside, be sure to put something over the top of it to protect it from the elements. To test the fence, first turn it on and then hang the tester on the active wire. Place the tester stick into the ground and the small light should begin flashing. It can be difficult to see in the sunlight, so try making some shade if you're having difficulty.
And now you're all done. And Mr. McGregor's fence is ready to begin protecting your garden.